20th of Tishrei, Hayom Yom, a particularly important halacha about lulav and esrog. We've been speaking a lot of them because, of course, this is the time for this. But this one, during the movements of the lulav, right, when you're holding the lulav and you said the bracha, and now you've joined the esrog with the other three minim. So the idea is to, not the idea, the mitzvah is accomplished by bringing all of that to touch the chest with the lulav at the spot that which one touches one's heart when we say Hashamas, right? As we say in davening and speak to on Yom Kippur, touch the heart. So my father, that's the halacha. That's the way to do it to fulfill the mitzvah. My father once said at a Farbringen, this is the Rebbe Rashab, said at a Farbringen, that this practice is similar to the idea that only through the earnestness before davening, when one is embittered over his sins, can there afterwards be an emotional excitement in davening. The Zohar sees, there's a whole mimer of the Alter Rebbe on this, which is lahamshich, to draw down the midos, all the midos to the heart, that everything is consistent with, everything depends on not the Chabad, but drawing the Chabad to the heart. And the heartfulness gives a person the Ernstkeit, as we say in Yiddish, the power and the earnestness to fulfill God's will. And that's brought about, well, I mean, by many ways, but on Sukkot, it's brought about by drawing down from above into the heart.
Avi?
Yeah.
Just in the Gem video last night, the Rebbe was doing this, and he was actually he was hitting it into his heart.
I know, I saw the video also. I'm sure others did all of it. Yes. Look, it's a cloud. The more of your physicality you put into the mitzvah, the more depth it strikes, and the more adhesion it has. And this is part of the mitzvah. The mitzvah of lulav and esrog is that it should be taken to heart. So let's take this to heart. Lessons in Tanya. I don't remember. Yeah, I did. Okay. Lessons in Tanya, what is this? In this little collection, volume 5. We're starting a new chapter, a new epistle, a letter 23. On page 40, what is this? 44, page 44. Okay, let us begin here in Likutei Moharan. The letter starts on the bottom of page 270. Again, we're in the section of pastoral letters where the Alter Rebbe is speaking to us. Gezeres Eden, he opens up with a Kabbalistic, or not Kabbalistic, but ancient phrase. By the decree of the ones who are woke, and we mean this, awakened to the service of Hashem, the holy ones who are awakened to the spirit of Hashem. So through their gezerah, through their decree, this Gama Amama Kedishin, it also, by the way, refers to the holy angels, the gezerahs of the Eden, the woke, awakened ones, the ones who see with open eyes. Pisgama Umaymer Kedishin. So I begin my pisgam, my speech, what I want to give over, and from the saying of the holy ones. The holy ones are the Talmid Chachamim and others who have that level of holiness that allows them to have a clear path, a relatively clear path, to bring things down from above and to raise things up from below. So, and he calls them Hachme HaMishnah. This refers specifically to the wise ones of the time of the Mishnah, the Tanoim and the Amoraim. So, in their words, he's bringing, through those words, of all those who are Hachme HaMishnah, and the angels, Shoshanu Mishnasam, who learned and taught in their Mishnah the following phrase. Asora sheyeshvin ve'oiskim b'Torah, 10 people who sit and learn Torah, Shechina shruya b'neihem, the Shechina dwells amongst them. We've learned what is Shechina. Shechina is Malchus of any world. Shechina is the revelation of God's kingship. Shechina is the Sukkah itself. Shechina is Sukkah's David Hanefeles. It's its all-encompassing light, like the skach surrounds us in the Sukkah. And in the time of Gullus, that level called the all-encompassing light, the revelation of godliness, which is called Shechina, the divine presence, Shechina David Hanefeles is fallen. That's the state of exile, the state of Gullus. So, to raise up the Shechina, to raise up the Sukkah, to rebuild the temple, to bring, so this is through the way the particular lens that we're looking at this at now is through the lens of Torah learned by 10 people sitting together. Kizek kol ha'odam, back inside, because this is the whole purpose of why we were created, which is to restore the Shekhinah, to even improve the return of the Shekhinah to an improved, deeper place than it was before it fell. That's the whole notion of light coming from darkness. That's what we were created for. And he says the vehicle for this that we're focusing on right now is learning through 10 people, a congregation, a minyan, learning together. Moreover, the whole purpose of their descent, he's speaking particularly about the Chachmei HaMishnah, but this pertains to all of us, the purpose of our descent down here below, is for the sake of this elevation, to raise up the Sukkah's David Hanefeles, the fallen Sukkah of exile, to redeem and create the redemption. That's the whole purpose of coming into this world. Which there's no greater elevation in this. Because God's strength, the strength of the Shekhinah, of Malchus, which is God's kingdom, which is high up in the heavens, and heavens of the heavens, nothing can contain her. Nothing can contain. She is infinite, and nothing can contain her wholly. But that infinite power is meant to come out of Gullus and be exposed and active in the world. And that's the purpose for which we were created. And this is brought about through the learning of 10 people, a congregation, a Geula, opinion together.
Avi, excuse me. I know that we ask this question every year, and in my awake state, I can't remember what was the statement, but I wonder if Zoom counts for sitting together. But I guess that's a halakha question.
It is a halakha question. I would wonder why we would even ask that question. I mean, but in other words, we are together. But okay, see why not though.
Pardon?
Rabbi, you can't daven a minyan through Zoom.
Right, you can't pray together with a minyan, but here we're talking about communal learning.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that this question, and if it's such an old question, we should answer it. You said we talked about it last year. So amongst us, do we have 10? I'm counting. Well, ooh, I think we might have a minyan here. So amongst all of us, how about we all take responsibility to find an answer to this question?
Thank you.
So, but we are learning nevertheless together. And through this learning, and it certainly will stay with the flame shot if we were physically together, that congregation. So Tishkan to Diskadl B'Sek B'nai Israel, the Shekhinah, which is ungraspable, uncontainable, but it's aroused and released, that force of Shekhinah amongst the children of Israel, when 10 people learn together. Kama Shekosef says, Ki ani Hashem shoichin b'teich b'nei Yisrael. The Pasuk says, I, God, dwell amongst the children of Israel. And we're saying here there's no group that's going to be called the children of Israel except a group of 10. Through occupation of Torah and mitzvahs in 10. I mean, have this question up. How about all the chats that people are putting together to give tzedakah? So when 10 people give tzedakah, as a result, is it also pertain to the same question? I don't know. But I'm not sitting with the question. I'm sitting with the fact that when 10 people get together and learn Torah, that raises up the Shekhinah. It breaks the Shekhinah whole again. And from the perspective where now speaking, you should have a question. What? One person doesn't have an ability to influence the raising of the Shekhinah, to bring the Shekhinah out of exile. And we've learned so many times that the 10 powers that we have within us correspond to the 10 spheros. And the notion of 10 is all over the place, right? And the 10 powers we have individually, the Rebbe speaks about the Geula Proti, the specific redemption, which comes by us integrating our 10 powers, and or in the integrating mean bringing them all to the service of Hashem as Hashem asks us to do. So this should be a question in a person's mind. We're saying only a million? You can't bring the Shekhinah, you can't raise the Shekhinah, you can't bring redemption without less than 10 people coming together. So this is actually a question which we're going to get to. It bothered the sages also, but now we're focusing for the moment on 10. 10 people who learn Torah together, sort of dafka specifically. And now at the top of page Kuflam and Vav. And Meshikosev, our sages have said, they've learned this from what's called a Gezerah Shava. Gezerah Shava is when one word appears in another place, and we can learn from one place to the next. So the word toich, which means within, refers to toich b'nei Yisrael, within the congregation of Israel. And the other place that he's bringing here where it refers to toich, refers to the spies who went up to Eretz Yisrael and gave a bad report. And in Lessons in Tanya, there's an interesting explanation why these two are brought together. They're brought together because the power of 10 is influential on both the side of Kedusha, holiness, and the other side. His expression from it's a pasuk actually. Zeh la'um zeh asa alakim. This opposite the other Hashem created. And so it becomes appropriate here in the place where there is separation, right? And an example of that separation is the spies who separated from God's view that they should just go up and and as a result of their separation, gave a bad report. And the notion of the opposite of separation, which is all inclusiveness, which is the power of 10. So there's the power of the transcendent power of 10 to overcome of Kedusha, to overpower the transcendent power of evil. And that's why we learn these from two opposites. But what do we learn? We learn the power of 10. And the power of 10 here on the side of Kedusha is the power to raise the Shekhinah, bring the Shekhinah out of exile, to raise the fallen Sukkah. And this says, Bikirbecha, in your midst, Bikirbecha, in your Kodesh, in your holy midst. And there's no thing of holiness less than 10, which, as I said earlier, provokes the question. We do a lot of things. He's made us holy with his mitzvahs. So each and any one of us, when we spoke about tzedakah, right? Giving tzedakah, each one of us has the power to bring the Shekhinah out of exile. So yes, but it turns out, as we'll see, that there are degrees of power, right? There are degrees of 10. And there are degrees of the Shekhinah, as we said earlier, who can grasp her? It's infinite. So there are infinite levels also in the Shekhinah, the gullus of the Shekhinah, There are infinite levels of Gullus. There are infinite levels of Geula. And so we're going to use that appropriately to say, yes, we're focusing. There is nothing comparable to the power of 10, though there certainly is power and virtue to the power of one who sits and learns or does a mitzvah. Well, Mishim Hochin, because of this, he says there's nothing.
One thing, can I interject? I think what you're saying here, it's deeper but kedusha. It's not a davar. It's saying words of kedusha. You need 10. It's not to do something with kedusha. You need 10. It's saying there's certain things like kedusha. You need 10.
There's nothing of holiness that comes except from a power of 10. Ein dover b'kedusha. A nice play on words you're doing, but it's
no, I don't think it's play on words. It's just what Lessons in Tanya says.
Ein dover b'kedusha.
I didn't make it up. Sorry. You can't say, like we don't say Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim unless you have a minion. I think that's what he's talking about here.
Well, maybe you can play. There's no holy thing, and we'll take how it comes up soon. There's nothing that's done in holiness in less than 10 people. Therefore, and so that statement that we just said, that nothing of Kedusha can come except in 10, the sages found something else to answer the question, wait a minute. If you say so we have to learn, even one person who sits and learns Torah, what's the expression? Shekhinah shori b'neihem, that the Shekhinah dwells amongst them. And moreover, so we find a notion that there's a notion of there's the reward of the mitzvah, and the reward of the mitzvah, it depends, what we're saying here, that there are levels in the reward as well. There's a level, and because what's the reward of a mitzvah? The reward of a mitzvah is not an object that you're getting, and you're not going to get that unless 10 people do it together. The reward of the mitzvah is the effusion of godliness, and the bringing out and spreading the infusion of godliness in all the worlds, and there are degrees of that. And that's what we say. So we're putting and introducing a relativity. There's no power like the power of 10, but that doesn't obviate the power of 1 or the power of 2. But there's a power in community. There's a power in a kehila, right? That doesn't exist in the power of the individual, but the individual also has power. We're not robbing the individual of the power and saying the individual avoida is worthless. On the contrary, it's worthful, but there's a greater worth that accrues to the mitzvah that's done with a kehila, with a group together. According to how big the group is. But if you're speaking about the inyan of the indwelling of the holiness of the holiness of the Holy One, blessed be He, as we said before, the Shekhinah is godliness, and it's an infinite entity. That's kind of a contradiction. But there are infinite degrees of godliness as well. So you can't compare the settling of the Shekhinah and the quality of Shekhinah that dwells in a mitzvah done by one person or separate people to one that's done by a group of people together. And that is the story. The value, the value of we're seeing all the time, every day, people encouraging other people to join together to say Tillim for this and that. You can't compare the power of that, which is much greater than the power of separate individuals doing their thing. Now, Pisha Rivka, you want to come back to that? I wasn't sure what you were saying that you said wasn't.
I think there's one more line to today's.
Yeah, והפרש שבין ראש לקביע שכר מובן לבניני mada. And the difference between the indwelling of the Shekhinah and the reward of the mitzvah is known, understood to those who understand the secrets of everything. There are qualitative differences between 1, 2, and 10. 10 is a magic number. Now we come back to it. Was there something that we were missing? If it is, bring it up. No?
No, I was just following along in Rabbi Weinberg's Chavracha, and that's what he's talking about. The recital of a davar kedusha, a text involving the sanctification of God's name, requires a quorum of 10, which we know. And
right.
So that's when referring to that expression, davar kedusha, he's talking about saying a text, reciting something out loud that it requires. It's an example why it's certain things you need 10 people. That's all.
Right, but here's not talking about where you need 10. You're saying that there's in general, in mitzvahs in general, the power of Geula has a power that's different and greater than the power of individuals.
Greater, yes. That's just an example. Yeah.
Okay, so
great.
A guten Moed till we meet again tomorrow, Mr. Shem.